The rain had finally stopped, leaving the whole street cold and quiet. Water dripped from the leaves of the big mango tree, tapping the wooden bench beneath it. That was where Benjamin saw her. Madame Agnes. Her body was curled like a child's, her wrapper was soaked from the rain, her grey hair was wet and stuck to her face. Her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't even hold her wrapper together. "Help me, please. I am dying here." The words came out weak, almost like the wind was stealing them away. People passed her. They stared, they whispered, they walked away faster. "She's the witch," one woman said, pulling her child close. "Her husband died. Her son vanished. Something is wrong with that woman." Benjamin stood there, watching all of them avoid her like she was something dangerous. But he didn't see a witch. He saw a lonely old woman who looked like she had been fighting life all by herself. His heart squeezed. He could not walk away. He stepped closer. When she turned her weak eyes to him, something inside him broke. Without saying a word, Benjamin pulled off his brown coat, the only thing he had to keep him warm at night, and wrapped it around her shoulders. She gasped softly as the warmth touched her cold skin. Her fingers held onto the coat like it was the only safe thing left in the world. Benjamin knelt down in front of her. "Ma, let me take you home," he said quietly. I cannot walk," she whispered. "I will carry you." He slid his arms under her body and lifted her. She was so light he felt the bones in her back. People stared again. Some shook their heads. Some whispered, "Benjamin doesn't fear?" Some even laughed. But Benjamin didn't stop. He carried her past the small shops, past the mud houses, past the mechanic shouting at his apprentices. He walked until he reached his own street, a small, quiet place with peeling walls and cracked windows. He pushed his room door open with his shoulder. Inside, the room was tiny. A thin mattress on the floor, a cracked window that let the cold air in, a bowl, a small stove, and one plastic chair. He gently placed Madame Agnes on his mattress. "Welcome to my home," he said with a soft smile. Her eyes filled with tears. "You gave me your coat, and now your bed," she whispered. "Why? Why are you helping me before I even ask?" Benjamin didn't answer at first, because deep inside he remembered how people had once walked away from him too. He remembered coming out of prison with nothing. He remembered neighbors locking their windows when they saw him. He remembered someone calling him that ex-convict, even when he hadn't done the crime. He knew what it felt like to be alone, and he could not leave her like that. "You need the bed more than I do," he finally said. "Let me find food for you." He stepped outside again, even though the night was cold and he had given away his only coat. He used the little money he had saved to buy bread, milk, and a small sachet of tea. Back in the room, he boiled water on his tiny stove. The room filled with the soft smell of hot tea. He helped her sit up and held the cup to her lips. She took a sip, then another, and slowly her shaking stopped. "It feels like life is coming back into me," she whispered. She ate the bread slowly, like it was the first food she had tasted in days. When she finished, she closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, my son." Benjamin watched her fall asleep on his mattress. Then he took a towel, folded it into a small pillow, placed it on the floor, and lay down on the cold cement. His back ached. The cold bit into his skin. The wind from the broken window touched him like ice. But still, he smiled. He felt peaceful. Benjamin woke before the sun. His bones hurt from sleeping on the floor, but he quickly checked on the old woman. She was alive. She was breathing easier. Her face looked calmer. He smiled and rushed to prepare water for her to wash her face. When she woke up, she stared at the room in shock. "You slept on the floor?" she asked. "Yes, Ma." "For me?" Benjamin nodded. Madame Agnes covered her mouth with her shaky fingers as tears fell. "No one has done this for me. Not even my husband's family." She looked around Benjamin's small room again, then whispered, "You saved my life." Every morning before leaving for his construction job, Benjamin made sure she had water and food. He bought what little he could. Sometimes it was only bread. Sometimes it was just Gary water with a bit of sugar. Sometimes it was nothing but warm tea. But he always tried. Madame Agnes grew stronger. She told him how her husband, Silas, had died in a taxi accident, how their only son, Henry, vanished 10 years ago, how people accused her of witchcraft, how she was thrown out to suffer alone. Benjamin listened, his heart breaking. On the third day, neighbors came. "Benjamin, send that woman away," one man said. "She will bring you bad luck," another woman warned. "She is cursed." Benjamin looked at them calmly. "She is someone's mother," he said. "And she is safe here." They hissed and walked away. But Benjamin didn't care. Each day he returned from work covered in cement dust. Each day his back hurt. Each day he struggled. But he still brought her food. On the fourth day, it had rained again that afternoon. Benjamin returned home, tired, hungry, and with jollof rice and chicken in his hand. He bought it with the last money he had for the week. He smiled, thinking of how happy she would be to smell the jollof. He reached his door, and froze. Someone knocked. Not a soft knock. Not a neighbor. Something stronger. Benjamin held the nylon of rice tighter and slowly opened the door. His mouth fell open. Black SUVs. Bodyguards in suits. Men with dark glasses. A handsome man in an expensive suit standing in the middle of them, all outside his tiny cracked building. The man looked straight at Benjamin. "Are you Benjamin?" he asked, voice shaking a little. Benjamin nodded slowly. "My name is Henry," he said. "I am looking for my mother. Someone told me you took her in." Benjamin's breath caught. "Wait, mother? Could it be?" Henry stepped closer, tears gathering in his eyes. "Please," he whispered. "Is my mother here? Her name is Agnes, Madam Agnes." Benjamin felt his heart drop. He turned to look at the door of his tiny room. Then he faced the billionaire again, his voice trembling. "Come in," Benjamin said softly. "Come and see her." And as Henry stepped into his tiny room full of peeling paint and cement smell, Benjamin had no idea that his life, his hunger, his struggles, his pain was about to end forever. Benjamin stepped aside as the rich man entered his tiny room. The place was silent except for the soft sound of Madame Agnes breathing on the mattress. Henry's polished shoes touched Benjamin's cracked cement floor. It was like watching two different worlds collide. One world full of struggle and pain, the other full of wealth and power. Henry took one slow step, then another. Benjamin's heart was beating so loudly he could hear it in his ears. He didn't know what would happen next. Would Henry accuse him? Would he think Benjamin did something to his mother? Anything was possible. The bodyguard stood outside, hands folded, eyes sharp. Henry stopped beside the mattress. For a moment, he didn't move. His breath shook. His eyes slowly filled with tears. Then, with a trembling voice, he whispered, "Mama." Madame Agnes's eyelids opened slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. Her weak eyes focused on the tall man kneeling in front of her. Her mouth fell open. She blinked fast, as if she didn't believe what she was seeing. "Henry?" she said in a tiny, shaky voice. Henry dropped to his knees beside her. His expensive suit touched Benjamin's rough floor, but he didn't care. He held his mother's thin hands and pressed his forehead to them. "Mama, it's me," he sobbed. "It's Henry. I didn't die. I didn't disappear forever. I went to Europe. I wanted to make you proud." Madame Agnes gasped loudly. Her hands flew to his face, touching his cheeks, his forehead, his chin. She kept touching him again and again, like she needed her fingers to confirm that he was real. "You are alive," she whispered. "My child, my only child. You are alive." She broke into tears. Henry pulled her into his arms and held her tightly like he feared she would disappear again if he let go. "I came back 1 month ago," he said through tears. "I searched everywhere. I thought maybe you moved. Someone finally told me. Benjamin took a week-old woman home. So I came." Benjamin stood at the corner, frozen. He didn't know if he should step out, or stay, or speak. His heart was full of shock, full of relief, full of something he had not felt in years' hope. Then Henry looked up, his eyes red but burning with questions. "Mama, where is Papa?" The room became cold. Madame Agnes let out a small cry and touched Henry's cheek again. "Silas, your father, he is gone." Henry froze. "Gone?" "He died," she whispered. "Months after you left. Your father's family blamed me. They beat me. They threw me out. They said I killed him with witchcraft. They let me suffer." Henry's face turned from sorrow to anger in 1 second. "They did what?" he shouted. "They let you struggle on the street. They left you to die." She nodded weakly. "I had no home. No food. No one to help me. They left me in the rain. They left me to die under the mango tree. If not for this young man, she pointed at Benjamin with a trembling hand, I would not be alive. Henry turned his head toward Benjamin. Their eyes met. Benjamin felt like he was standing before a king. Henry stood up quietly and walked to him. His face was wet with tears, but his voice was steady. You took her in, he said. You covered her. You fed her. You carried her to safety. You did what even her family refused to do. Benjamin swallowed hard. I just did what felt right, he said softly. Henry shook his head. No, he said firmly. You did more than right. You saved my mother's life. He stretched out his hand. Benjamin looked at it, confused. Henry smiled a warm, grateful smile. Thank you, Henry whispered. Thank you for saving the woman who gave me life. Benjamin didn't know how to react. He slowly took Henry's hand and shook it. For a moment, it felt like peace filled the whole room. Then Henry turned to his bodyguards outside the door. Bring the car close, Henry commanded. We are taking my mother home. 2 guards rushed to move the SUV forward. Inside the room, Henry gently lifted Madame Agnes into his arms. She clung to him, crying softly into his shoulder. My son, my child, you came back. Benjamin felt his eyes burn with emotion. He had never seen anything like this in his life. Henry turned toward him again. You're coming with us, he said suddenly. Benjamin blinked. Me? Yes, Henry said. You think my mother will leave you behind? You think I will leave you behind? Never. Pack your things. Benjamin looked around his tiny room. He didn't have much. A small bag, a few clothes, a toothbrush, a torn Bible. He packed them quickly, his hands shaking. He stepped outside and saw the black SUV door open. Henry laid his mother inside the back seat gently, covering her legs with a warm blanket. Then he looked at Benjamin. Sit beside her, Henry said. She will be calm if you're close. Benjamin obeyed, still shocked. The SUV door closed. The engine started. The convoy of black cars slowly began to move. Benjamin watched the street where he had struggled for years fade behind him. The cracked houses, the muddy road, the worn-out shops, all of it disappeared as they drove toward Victoria Island. Madame Agnes reached for Benjamin's hand and squeezed it. My son, she whispered weakly. May God bless you forever. Benjamin swallowed a lump in his throat. He looked through the tinted window as tall buildings replaced the small houses he had always known. Soon, they passed through a large black gate guarded by armed men. Inside, Benjamin gasped. The mansion was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen. White walls, tall glass windows, a fountain spraying water like sparkling diamonds, palm trees lining the driveway. He felt like he had stepped into another world. Maids rushed out the moment the SUV stopped. They bowed their heads and greeted Henry respectfully. Welcome, sir. Henry nodded and pointed toward his mother. Take her to the master bedroom, he said. Give her everything she needs. The maids helped Madame Agnes inside with care and love. Benjamin stood beside the SUV, shaking, unable to process what was happening. Then Henry faced him again. I'm not finished with you, he said. Benjamin froze. Henry took one step closer, then another. He stopped right in front of Benjamin and said something that made Benjamin's heart nearly stop beating. Benjamin, starting today, you are no longer a poor man. Benjamin blinked fast, confused. Sir, I don't understand. Henry smiled. A slow, emotional smile. You helped my mother before she even asked, he said. Now it's my turn to help you. Follow me inside. Benjamin stepped forward, not knowing that what Henry was about to show him next would change his life forever. Benjamin followed Henry through the massive entrance of the mansion, still holding his small bag of clothes. Every step felt unreal. The marble floors shined like mirrors. The walls were decorated with giant paintings. Soft lights glowed from the ceiling. Everything smelled clean like expensive soap and fresh flowers. Benjamin had never been inside a place like this. Henry walked ahead of him, calm and confident, as if he owned the whole world. In a way, he did. Come, Henry said gently. Benjamin tried to keep his breathing steady. His heart was beating too fast. He kept wondering if any of this was real or if he was dreaming on his cold cement floor back home. They reached a huge living room. Benjamin stopped at the doorway. This room alone was bigger than his entire compound. A massive white sofa, a glass table, carpets soft enough to sink into, a giant TV on the wall, a chandelier glowing like stars trapped inside glass. Benjamin's legs felt weak. "Sit," Henry said. Benjamin hesitated. The sofa looked too white, too clean, too expensive. "Are you sure?" he whispered. Henry smiled. "Benjamin, it's furniture. It won't bite you." Benjamin slowly sat down. The cushion hugged him softly. He wasn't used to that feeling. Henry pulled a chair close and sat opposite him. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Henry spoke. "Benjamin, my mother told me everything." Benjamin's heart dropped. "Everything?" he repeated, scared. "Yes," Henry said softly. "How people called her a witch, how she was thrown out, how she was left alone in the rain, and how you carried her home with your bare hands." Benjamin looked down. "I just couldn't leave her," he murmured. "She needed help. I didn't think. I just did what felt right." Henry leaned closer. "That is what makes you different," he said. "Most people walk away when someone is suffering, but you moved toward her." Benjamin's eyes stung with emotion. "So," Henry continued, "I want to know your story." Benjamin swallowed. He didn't want to open old wounds, but the way Henry looked at him with kindness, not judgment, made him feel safe. So he began. I was not always like this," Benjamin said quietly. He stared at his hands, rough from carrying cement bags. "I had a degree in accounting. I worked in a bank. A good bank." Henry raised his eyebrows. "You worked in a bank?" Benjamin nodded slowly. "I had a wife too," he whispered. "And a daughter, Juliet." Pain flashed in his eyes. "One day I came home early," Benjamin continued, "and found a note on the table. My wife wrote it. She said my daughter, the child I had loved for 3 years, was not mine." Henry gasped softly. "She ran away with another man," Benjamin said. "She took everything. I didn't know what to do." He touched his chest lightly. "It broke me." Henry's face tightened with sadness. "And then?" he asked. Benjamin took a deep breath. "Someone in the bank stole money," he said. "A colleague. He used my computer, my ID, my desk." Benjamin's voice cracked. "The bank accused me. The police arrested me. I went to prison." Henry closed his eyes in pain. "No evidence," he whispered. "None," Benjamin said. "But I still spent 5 years in jail. 5 long years." His voice was shaky now. "When I came out, no one wanted to hire me. Everyone looked at me like a thief, like a dangerous man. I had no home, no family. I became nothing." A tear fell onto his hand. Henry didn't try to stop his own tears. "You carried all that pain," Henry whispered, "and you still helped a stranger." Benjamin nodded slowly. "I didn't want anyone else to feel the loneliness I felt." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Henry stood up. His voice was quiet but strong. "Benjamin, look at me." Benjamin lifted his head. Henry's face was full of emotion. "You suffered. You were punished for a crime you didn't commit. You lost your family. You lost everything." Henry placed his hand gently on Benjamin's shoulder. "But all this pain did not destroy your heart. You still chose kindness. You still chose to help my mother before she even asked. That makes you a rare man." Benjamin looked away, overwhelmed. Henry continued. "I made a promise on the way here," he said. "A promise to God. If my mother was still alive, I would change the life of the person who saved her." Benjamin blinked fast. "Sir, I don't deserve anything." "Stop." Henry lifted his hand. "You deserve more than you think." He walked toward a small drawer near the TV, opened it, and took out a white envelope. Benjamin watched him, confused. Henry stepped back and placed the envelope in Benjamin's hand. "Open it," Henry said. Benjamin slowly pulled out a document. His eyes widened. It was an employment letter, a real one, with Henry's company name written in bold letters. Hentech Global Solutions Head Office, Lagos. Benjamin's mouth fell open. I don't understand," he whispered. Henry smiled. "You are hired," Henry said. "You will be my company's account officer." Benjamin froze. His hands shook. "What?" he whispered. "Me? A construction worker? A man with nothing? How can I?" "You are not a construction worker," Henry said firmly. "You are an accountant, a graduate, a man with integrity. I trust you with my mother. Now I trust you with my company." Benjamin covered his face with both hands as tears spilled out. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Henry sat beside him again and placed an arm around his shoulder. "Say nothing," he said. "Just accept it. You helped my mother, now let me help you." Benjamin cried quietly into his hands. No one had held him like this. No one had believed in him like this. No one had lifted him up like this. After a moment, Henry stood. "There is more," he said. Benjamin looked up, confused. Henry pointed toward the stairs. "Follow me. I want to show you something." Benjamin wiped his eyes and slowly stood up. They began walking up the marble staircase. Each step felt heavy with suspense. When they reached the top floor, Henry led him to a long hallway with beautiful paintings. He stopped at a wooden door. "This," Henry said slowly, "will be yours." Benjamin frowned. "Mine? Sir, what is inside?" Henry turned the door handle and slowly pushed it open. The lights came on. Benjamin gasped so loudly that his voice echoed inside the room. His legs almost gave out, because inside was a room larger than his entire building back home. A queen-sized bed with gold designs, thick curtains, a flat-screen TV, a wardrobe full of clothes, a soft rug, a bathroom that looked like a small spa. Benjamin stepped inside, trembling. "Sir," he whispered, This can't be for me." Henry smiled softly behind him. "It is," Henry said. "Starting today, this is your room." Benjamin covered his mouth with both hands. He felt like shouting, crying, falling to his knees, all at once. But before he could speak, Henry placed a hand on his shoulder and said one more thing, a sentence that shook Benjamin's whole soul. "Benjamin, you will never suffer again." Just then, a maid suddenly rushed into the hallway, breathing fast. Sir Henry," she cried. Henry turned sharply. "What is it?" The maid pointed down the stairs, terrified. "It's Madame Agnes," she said, voice shaking. "Something is wrong. She just collapsed." Henry's face went pale. Benjamin's heart dropped, and everything in Benjamin's new world began to shake. Henry didn't wait. The moment the maid said, "She collapsed," he ran. He flew down the marble staircase so fast, the guards standing near the door stiffened in shock. Benjamin dropped his small bag on the hallway floor and chased after him, nearly stumbling on the last step. "Mama," Henry shouted. "Mama, please." They reached the living room. Two maids were kneeling beside Madame Agnes, who was lying on the soft rug. Her body was still. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow and shaky, as if each breath was fighting to stay alive. Henry knelt beside her and lifted her upper body into his arms. "Mama, look at me," he whispered. "It's Henry. I'm here. Stay with me, Mama." But she didn't open her eyes. Benjamin felt his heart tighten. It was the same way she had looked under the mango tree, weak, fading, lost. "Call the doctor," Henry shouted. "Now!" One maid grabbed the house phone with shaking hands. Another ran to the kitchen to bring water and a towel. Benjamin knelt beside Henry, his own hands trembling. "Let me help lift her head," Benjamin said softly. Henry nodded quickly. Together, they held her gently. Madame Agnes's lips moved, a small whisper escaping. "Henry." "I'm here, Mama," he breathed, his voice full of fear. "Please don't leave me again. Please." A tear fell onto her cheek from his face. Benjamin placed a hand on Henry's back. "She is strong, sir. She has survived worse. She won't give up now." But even Benjamin knew the truth. Her body was too weak. Her soul had carried too much pain. If help didn't come fast, her chances were slipping away. 5 minutes felt like 5 years. Finally, the mansion doors opened. A private doctor rushed in, holding a black medical bag. 2 nurses followed him. The guard led them straight to the living room. "What happened?" the doctor asked quickly. "She collapsed," Henry said, wiping tears with the back of his hand. "She was fine a moment ago, then she just fell forward." "Move back, please," the doctor said. Henry stepped back a little, but his eyes never left his mother. The doctor checked her pulse, her heartbeat, her breathing. His face tightened. "How is she?" Henry asked in a shaking voice. The doctor didn't answer immediately. He opened the bag and took out an oxygen mask, placing it carefully over Madame Agnes's nose and mouth. He inserted a small needle into her hand for IV fluids, then signaled a nurse to hold the drip higher. Benjamin watched everything with fear in his bones. She is dehydrated, malnourished, weak. Her body has lost too much strength, the doctor said finally. She needs to be taken to the hospital right now. Henry stood up instantly. Prepare the SUV, he ordered. Benjamin helped lift Madame Agnes carefully into Henry's arms. The guards opened the large doors. Rain had started again outside, but no one cared. Benjamin, ride with me, Henry said firmly. Okay. The SUV moved with speed and sirens as they rushed through the city. Henry held his mother close the entire ride. Benjamin sat beside him, watching the old woman fight weakly for each breath. Please don't die, Henry whispered again and again. I just found you. Please don't leave me. Benjamin felt tears slipping down his own cheeks. He remembered how she had looked after drinking his hot tea. How she had whispered, "Thank you, my son." He couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Not now. Not when hope had finally returned. They reached a private hospital in Victoria Island. Nurses rushed toward them immediately. Emergency unit, the doctor shouted. Clear the path. Benjamin and Henry followed closely as they wheeled Madame Agnes into a white room filled with machines and bright light. Nurses connected tubes to her arm and chest. Machines beeped loudly. The doctor worked fast, checking everything again. Henry stood frozen at the doorway, his hands shaking. Benjamin touched his arm. She will be okay. Henry didn't speak. His throat was too tight. After several long minutes, the doctor finally stepped away from the bed. He walked toward them. Henry grabbed the doctor's hands. Tell me the truth, he said. Is she going to survive? The doctor breathed in deeply. She is stable for now, he said, but she is very weak. Old age, stress, hunger, everything pushed her body to the limit. Benjamin closed his eyes in pain. Henry nodded slowly, tears rolling down his cheeks again. Can I see her? Yes, but don't wake her. Henry and Benjamin walked into the room quietly. Madame Agnes lay on the bed with oxygen tubes in her nose. She looked smaller than ever. Henry moved closer and gently held her hand. Mama, he whispered, you're safe. I'm here now. I won't leave you again. Benjamin stood at the other side of the bed. The room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of the machine that counted her heartbeat. After a while, Madame Agnes's eyes opened slowly. Henry gasped. Mama. She looked up at him weakly, her lips shaking. Henry, my son, you came back. Yes, Mama, I'm here. She turned her eyes to Benjamin. And you, she whispered, my second son. You carried me when everyone left me. Benjamin's throat tightened. You saved me, she continued. You saved my life. Before I even asked. Benjamin wiped a tear from his cheek. Henry's eyes moved between the two of them. Benjamin is the reason you're alive today, Henry said softly, and because of that, he will never lack anything again. Madame Agnes smiled faintly. Then she breathed out a shaky whisper. Don't forget him, Henry. Promise me. Promise. You will never forget the man who saved your mother. Henry squeezed her hand gently. I promise, Mama. Her fingers relaxed, and she drifted back to sleep. Henry quietly stepped outside the room, and Benjamin followed. They both sat on the long bench in the quiet hallway. For a long time, Henry didn't speak. Then he finally said in a low voice, Benjamin, I have something I must show you. Benjamin turned his head, confused. Show me what? Henry stood up. Come, he said. It is time you know what kind of life you walked into when you picked up my mother. He led Benjamin to a private office overlooking the city. The lights outside were bright and beautiful. Henry opened a drawer and pulled out a brown folder. Inside were documents, phone records, signed agreements, bank statements. He placed them on the desk gently. Benjamin frowned. Sir, what is this? Henry took a deep breath. Then he looked Benjamin straight in the eyes. My father didn't die by accident, he said quietly. Someone did it. Benjamin's eyes widened. Henry continued, his voice dark with pain. And that same person is also the reason my mother suffered on the street. Benjamin's heart began to beat faster. Who? He whispered. Henry slowly turned the folder toward him and pointed at a name. Benjamin looked down. What he saw made his whole body freeze, because the name written there was someone he never expected. Benjamin stared at the name written on the document. His breath caught in his chest. His fingers froze. His mind refused to believe what his eyes were reading. "Sir," he whispered shakily, "this can't be true." Henry nodded slowly, his jaw tight with pain. "It's true," he said. "Every line, every detail, every signature. I confirmed it myself." Benjamin swallowed hard, staring again at the name written boldly on the page. The name Henry claimed caused everything. Chief Udochukwu, Silas's older brother, Henry's uncle. The same uncle who had thrown Madame Agnes out. The same family member who called her a witch. The same man who convinced the entire community that she was cursed. Benjamin felt anger rise in his chest. "Why would your father's brother do all this?" he whispered. Henry let out a long, tired breath. "Because of money," Henry said. "Because my father named me as the future owner of his lands. Because he planned to leave the transport company to me. Because he loved me too much." He shook his head. "Uncle Udochukwu wanted everything. He convinced the family that my mother was the reason misfortune came. He poisoned their minds with lies." Henry closed the folder slowly. "My father didn't die by accident," he repeated softly. "He was driving an old taxi that someone had secretly tampered with." Benjamin's chest tightened. The taxi accident, the whispers, the hatred, everything suddenly made sense. Henry stepped closer to the window, looking down at the busy lights of Lagos. "Mama told me she had suspicions," Henry said, "but she had no proof. And when I left for Europe, she became an easy target." He turned back to Benjamin, eyes full of fire. "I will not let what happened in the past continue. I will protect my mother. I will rebuild her life. And anyone who hurt her will face justice." Benjamin felt his heart ache with respect. Henry had suffered too. Even with his riches, he carried heavy pain. Benjamin sat quietly for a few moments, letting the truth settle. Then Henry spoke again, this time gently. "You walked into danger the day you helped my mother," Henry said. "But you didn't even know. You only knew she needed help." Benjamin nodded slowly. "I didn't think of danger," he said softly. "I only saw a human being suffering." Henry placed a hand on his shoulder. "That kindness," he said, "is what changed everything." A nurse suddenly knocked on the office door. "Sir." "She is awake." Henry's heart jumped. Benjamin stood quickly. They rushed to Madame Agnes's room. Her eyes were open. She was sitting up slowly, breathing better, looking much stronger than before. Her face brightened the moment she saw them. "My sons," she whispered. Henry rushed to her side, holding her hand. "Mama, how do you feel?" "Stronger," she said softly. "Better than I have in months." Benjamin smiled warmly. "You gave us quite a scare, Ma." She chuckled lightly. "I've survived worse. God is not done with me yet." A nurse checked her vitals, then smiled. "She is stable. She may be discharged tomorrow if she continues improving." Henry exhaled in relief. "Thank God," he whispered. Madame Agnes turned her eyes to Benjamin. "You look tired," she said gently. "Sit beside me." He obeyed and sat. She took his hand with her weak fingers. "You carried me when no one wanted to touch me. You fed me when I had nothing. You gave me warmth when the cold wanted to kill me." Tears filled her eyes. "And now look at you," she whispered proudly. "You saved me before I asked, and now my God will save you in ways you never saw coming." Benjamin felt his throat tighten. He didn't want to cry in front of her, but he could not stop the small tear that slipped down. Henry watched them with a soft smile. "You two," he said, shaking his head lightly, "are the reason I believe life gives second chances." Benjamin looked at him. "I didn't do much, sir." "You did everything," Henry interrupted firmly. The next day, Madame Agnes was discharged. The drive back to the mansion was peaceful. She rested her head on a soft pillow. Benjamin sat beside her, and Henry sat in front, constantly looking back to check on her. When they arrived, maids rushed to welcome her. They guided her slowly to a new room, large, bright, beautifully arranged with soft sheets and warm blankets. Henry stood proudly at the door. "This is yours, Mama. Forever." She placed a hand on his cheek. "I am proud of you, my son." Then she turned and saw Benjamin shyly standing behind them. "And you," she said, stretching her arm toward him. Benjamin stepped forward. She placed her hand on his. "You are now part of this family." He bowed his head in respect, trying not to cry again. In the days that followed, Benjamin's life changed in ways he never imagined. Benjamin reported to Hentech Global Solutions. Employees whispered when he walked by. Who is he? Why is he with the boss? Did Henry hire him personally? Benjamin ignored the whispers and focused on learning. Before long, he impressed everyone with his intelligence and honesty. Henry trusted him completely. He sat beside Henry in board meetings. He helped balance financial reports. He worked late but always with joy. For the first time since his prison years, Benjamin felt like a human being again. She became the queen of the mansion. She healed slowly. She gained weight. She smiled more. Maids called her Mama Agnes. Guards respected her. Visitors greeted her with honor. She prayed for Benjamin every night. 3 years passed. Benjamin bought his own mansion. He bought a white SUV. He dressed well. He walked confidently. He met Debbie, a beautiful financial analyst with a gentle heart. Henry met Monica, a cloud engineer. Their love stories grew. Their families blended. Their weddings were magical. On the day Benjamin married Debbie, Madame Agnes walked him down the aisle. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were full of pride. Her heart glowed like fire. Benjamin cried as he spoke at the wedding. My kindness to a stranger, he said, became the miracle that saved my life. The guests clapped. Some wiped tears. Others whispered, "This story is like a movie." It truly was. 1 year later, Henry and Monica welcomed a baby boy named Silas, after Henry's father. Benjamin and Debbie welcomed a baby girl named Juliet. But happiness can sometimes break too soon. Juliet died after 1 week. Debbie screamed in pain. Benjamin held her as she cried. Their world fell apart. Madame Agnes moved into their home for 3 months. She cooked for them, prayed for them, sat beside Debbie at night, held Benjamin whenever he couldn't breathe from sadness. 3 years passed after the loss. No child came again. Doctors said nothing was wrong. Benjamin and Debbie held each other through tears. They prayed silently. One night, Madame Agnes took Benjamin's hand gently and said, "My son, a kind man like you, deserves the joy of being a father. Do not give up. God is not finished with your story." Benjamin nodded slowly, trusting her words. That night, Benjamin stepped outside the balcony of his mansion. The moon was full. The air was quiet. He stared at the sky with a heavy heart when suddenly he heard a car engine. A black SUV slowly entered his compound. Benjamin frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. The car door opened. A man stepped out. Benjamin froze. Because the person who stepped out, the person visiting him at night, was someone from his past. Someone whose face he thought he would never see again. Someone who carried secrets that could destroy everything. Benjamin took a step back, shock filling his body. The man whispered, "Benjamin, we need to talk." Benjamin stood frozen on the balcony, his heart pounding like a drum. The black SUV door remained open, and the man who stepped out walked slowly toward him. The outside lights of the mansion cast long shadows on the driveway, making the moment feel unreal, like a scene from a film where the past comes back to demand an answer. Benjamin's mouth went dry. His hands began to shake. The man finally stepped fully into the light, and Benjamin's breath caught in his throat. It was Philip, the same co-worker from the bank, the same man who used Benjamin's computer, the same man who stole money 8 years ago, the same man whose actions sent Benjamin to prison. His heart stopped. "Philip," he whispered, barely able to speak. Philip looked nothing like before. He was older. His face looked tired and worn out. His clothes were rough. His eyes carried guilt that seemed to crush his shoulders down. Benjamin took a step back in shock. His chest tightened. He whispered again, "Why? Why are you here?" Philip swallowed hard, as if forcing himself to breathe. "I came because I can't run anymore," he said, his voice shaking. "I came to tell you the truth." Benjamin felt anger rise in him like hot fire. This man, the man standing in front of him, had destroyed his life. He had stolen money, framed Benjamin, and watched him go to prison without saying a word. For years, Benjamin had cried, fought, begged God for answers. Now the man responsible was standing right in front of him. Benjamin clenched his fists. "You should leave before I call the police." Philip lifted both hands quickly. "Please, don't. Please hear me out." Benjamin didn't move. He didn't blink. Philip took a shaky step closer. "I know you hate me," Philip said, "and I deserve it. I destroyed everything you had. Your job, your name, your peace. Benjamin felt his heart twist with pain as old memories flashed in his mind. Philip continued, his voice breaking. What I did was wrong. But I wasn't working alone. Benjamin's stomach dropped. His breath froze. What do you mean? He whispered. Philip looked around like someone afraid they were being followed. May I come inside? He asked. Benjamin hesitated. His heart said no. His mind said be careful. But something deeper, a sense of unfinished truth, made him step aside. Philip walked into the living room. Benjamin closed the door and stood behind him. Say it, Benjamin said. Philip took a deep breath. I worked with someone, he finally said. Someone powerful. Someone who wanted you out of the way. Someone who manipulated everything. Benjamin's eyes narrowed. Who? Philip looked up slowly. And when he said the name, Benjamin felt the room spin. The name hit him like a heavy blow, stealing his breath away. He grabbed the back of a chair to keep himself from falling. That person, Philip whispered. That's the one who planned everything from the bank theft, to your arrest, to everything that ruined your life. Benjamin staggered back. He whispered the name in shock. No, it can't be. Philip nodded painfully. Yes, I'm sorry. I hid it for years because I thought he would kill me. He said he would destroy my family if I talked. But now I have nothing to lose. Benjamin's hands shook violently. All this time, all these years, he had blamed the wrong person. He felt tears burning at the back of his eyes. Why are you telling me now? Benjamin asked. Philip sighed, trembling. Because someone is looking for you, someone dangerous, and if I don't warn you, you might end up dead. Benjamin's knees weakened. Dead? He whispered. Philip nodded. He wants revenge, because Henry brought you into his company. He thinks you're digging too close to secrets he buried. Benjamin felt his heartbeat rise in fear. What secrets? Philip shook his head fast. Not now. There's no time. You're in danger, Benjamin. Serious danger. And so is Madame Agnes. Benjamin's chest tightened with terror. Not Madame Agnes. Not the woman who saved his heart. Philip stepped closer, his voice urgent. You must leave the city tonight. Before anyone sees you. Before they trace you here. At that moment, the door opened quietly. Henry stepped inside. He had come downstairs to check on Benjamin. His face changed instantly when he saw Philip standing in the living room. Benjamin, Henry said sharply. Who is this man? Philip froze. Henry's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Benjamin looked from Henry to Philip, then back to Henry. His voice trembled with fear. This man, he knows who destroyed my life, Benjamin said. He knows who wants to destroy yours too. Henry stepped closer slowly. Who? He demanded. Tell me now. Philip looked terrified. They'll kill me if I say it out loud. Henry clenched his jaw. Say the name. Philip's lips shook. His eyes darted around, as if expecting someone to burst into the mansion. Henry stepped closer, towering over him. Philip, Henry said, voice dangerously calm. I won't ask again. Philip closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then he whispered a name so quietly, yet filled with so much weight. It felt like the entire room shook. Henry's entire body went still. Benjamin's hands went numb. The air felt heavy, hot, dangerous. Say it again, Henry ordered, his voice suddenly loud. Philip opened his eyes and whispered the name a second time, this time louder, this time clear, and this time the sound cut through Benjamin's heart like a knife. Henry stumbled backward, shocked. Benjamin covered his mouth, whispering, no, 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 because the name Philip revealed was someone deeply connected to them, someone they trusted, someone who had been close, too close, all along. Before Henry could speak, before Benjamin could even breathe, the mansion lights suddenly went off. Darkness swallowed the room. The SUV outside revved loudly, as if someone had triggered an alarm. Henry turned sharply toward the blackout. Benjamin froze. Philip whispered, terrified. He's here. At that moment, a shadow moved outside the glass window. A tall figure, dressed in black, watching them. Benjamin's heart stopped. Henry whispered, everyone, stay still. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the darkness, Philip whispered, if he catches us, none of us will leave alive. Benjamin grabbed Henry's arm. "Henry, what do we do?" The front door handle began to move slowly. Someone was trying to enter. The three men stared at the door, breath frozen, as the shadow outside pushed it open. The door creaked. The darkness deepened. A silhouette stepped inside, and Benjamin whispered, "Oh God, no." What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel to watch the part 2 when we upload it.